My father-in-law, Mark Miller, looked at my door. His fancy handmade Italian shoe was tapping on my worn-out welcome mat. He was nervous. My mother-in-law, Karen, was holding his arm. She was trying to look strong, but her eyes were red from crying. They had just lost everything. Their homes, their cars, their company. And they had come to me. They had come to the tiny apartment they always made fun of. They thought I was their last hope. But I wasn't their hope. I was their ending. My name is Sandra Vasquez. I'm 32 years old. For 10 years I was married to their son, Kevin. I was the poor girl from the Bronx who wasn't good enough for their golden boy. I tried everything to make them like me. I cooked their favorite meals. I remembered their birthdays. I even quit my job to help run their family charities. But it was never enough. To them, I was just the girl living in their son's shadow. The girl with no money and no family name. They had no idea who I really was. If you have ever felt small, if you have ever been told you are not good enough, please, I'm begging you, subscribe to this channel. This story is for you. This isn't just my story. It's our story. And I promise you, by the end of this, you will feel the hope I felt. You will feel the power. This story will change how you see the world. Stick with me, and I will show you exactly how I took back my life, one brick at a time. Mark finally spoke. His voice was shaky. Sandra, he said. He couldn't even look at me. I know we haven't been close. But we need your help. Karen, my mother-in-law, pushed past him. She looked around my tiny living room. It was small, just one couch and a small TV. This is cozy, she said. The way she said cozy sounded like she was saying dirty. Even now, when they needed me, she was still insulting me. She was still laughing at my tiny apartment. I just smiled. I remembered the last time I saw her 6 months ago. It was at the divorce hearing. My husband, Kevin, sat right next to her. He didn't even look at me. His mother did all the talking. She told the judge I was unstable. She said I was trying to steal the Miller family money. The judge believed her. I lost almost everything. I had to sell my car just to afford the deposit on this exact apartment. This cozy little place. They thought they had left me with nothing. Please, Sandra, Mark begged again. He was crying now. Big, wet tears ran down his face. Kevin, our son. He's in trouble. The company is gone. The feds froze everything. Our pensions. Our retirement. Everything. They took the house in the Hamptons. They're going to take the penthouse. We have nowhere to go. He looked at me with those desperate eyes. We were wondering if we could stay here. Just for a few nights. Until we figure things out. I almost laughed. Stay here. In my tiny apartment. What would you do? Would you let them in? Would you slam the door in their face? Please let me know in the comments where you are watching this from. I want to read every single one of your answers. And I truly believe that if you share your strength with me right now, something wonderful and positive will happen to you and your family this week. We all need to support each other. 'Cause what I did next, I needed all the strength in the world to do it. I stepped aside. Of course you can come in, I said. My voice was sweet like honey. They both looked so relieved. Mark sighed and Karen even tried to give me a weak smile. They walked past me. Karen immediately started to look around, judging everything. It's even smaller than I thought, she whispered to Mark, thinking I couldn't hear her. The kitchen is basically a closet. Mark shushed her. It doesn't matter, Karen. It's a roof. They still didn't get it. They still thought they were better than me. You're right, Karen, I said, closing the door behind them. The click of the lock was very loud. They both turned to look at me. It is small. But I'm not the one who lives here. Mark looked confused. What do you mean? This isn't your apartment. I smiled and walked over to my little kitchen. I didn't open the closet refrigerator. Instead, I pressed my hand against the cheap, fake-looking brick wall next to it. There was a hissing sound. Their eyes went wide. The entire wall started to move. The wall opened up, revealing a dark, silent elevator. It was lined with dark wood and gold. Karen's mouth fell open. What is this?" she whispered. I turned to look at them. The fear in their eyes was beautiful. "You came here to see my tiny apartment," I said. "You laughed at it. But this isn't my apartment. This is the lobby." I stepped into the elevator. "Now, I'll give you the real tour. Please, if you want to see what happens next, if you want to see them get what they deserve, subscribe. You don't want to miss this." Mark and Karen just stared. Their faces were white like ghosts. Karen's hand was at her throat. "Sandra, what is this?" she whispered. Mark tried to look brave, but his hands were shaking. Is this a joke?" he asked. I smiled and stepped into the elevator. The doors started to close with a soft whoosh. They didn't move. They were too scared. "Well," I asked, "are you coming? The tour is just starting." They looked at each other, then quickly stumbled in just before the doors shut. They had no other place to go. The elevator was not like any they had ever seen. It was lined with dark mirrors, so they had to look at their own scared faces. The floor was soft, black marble. It didn't make a sound as it moved. Karen reached out a shaky hand to touch the wall. This is impossible," she said. "This building is old. It's cheap." I watched them in the mirror. "Things are not always what they seem, Karen," I said. "You should know that." The elevator wasn't going down. It was going up. Very fast. The elevator stopped. There was no ding. Just silence. Then the doors opened. Karen gasped. Mark just froze. It wasn't an apartment. It was a palace in the sky. We stepped out onto a floor made of pure white glass. The room was huge. It was bigger than their whole house in the Hamptons. One entire wall was glass, looking out over all of New York City. The lights of the city looked like millions of diamonds. This was the real apartment. The tiny one downstairs was just the front door. I remembered a dinner 3 years ago. Mark and Karen took me and Kevin to a fancy restaurant. I wore my best dress. I was so nervous. Karen looked at my dress and laughed. "Oh, Sandra," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You really try, don't you? It's sweet." Mark just shook his head and said, "Kevin, son, you can't buy class." I wanted to disappear. Felt so small, like a bug. Now, standing in my home, they were the ones who looked small. They looked like bugs on my white glass floor. "How?" Mark finally said. His voice was just a croak. "How is this possible, Sandra? This penthouse must be worth $50 million. We know your family. We know you." He stopped. He meant I had no money. Had no name. "You lost everything in the divorce," Karen added, her eyes wide. "We made sure of it." She said it without thinking. She just admitted it. Admitted they had ruined me. I walked over to the giant window. The city was beautiful. I could see their old penthouse building from here. It looked so small. "You're right, Karen," I said, not looking at them. "You did. You and Kevin took everything. You left me with nothing." I turned around. "Or so you thought." I walked over to a big, beautiful white couch. Have you ever been pushed so far that you finally snapped? Have you ever had a secret that you knew would change everything? That's what this felt like. "Are you hungry, Mark?" "Thirsty, Karen. You look tired. It must have been a long day, losing your entire life's work." They just stared at me. They were afraid of me. But I thought about my ex-husband, Kevin. Their golden boy. I loved him. I really did. Thought he loved me. But he was weak. He did everything his parents told him to do. When his mother told him to hide the money from me during the divorce, he did it. When his father told him to lie in court, he did it. He stood there in that courtroom and told the judge I was a crazy, greedy woman. He watched me cry. He watched me beg. And he did nothing. He just looked at his shoes. The same expensive shoes his father was wearing right now. "Where is Kevin?" I asked, my voice suddenly cold. Karen's head snapped up. What? She said. Why do you ask? You haven't seen him. Smiled. Oh, I've seen him. This was the part of the tour they weren't going to like. He's the one who gave me the key to this place. In a way. Mark stepped forward. What did you do, Sandra? What did you do to our son? His voice was angry. Finally, the old Mark was back. But it wouldn't last long. I didn't do anything to him, Mark, I said. I did everything for him. And for you. I pointed down a long, dark hallway. The white glass floor ended, and the hallway was just dark wood. Looks scary. The tour isn't over. You wanted to see my home. Let's go. The best part is down here. They didn't want to go. I could see the panic in their eyes. But what choice did they have? Go down my dark hallway? Or go back to the street with nothing? They slowly started to follow me. I walked down the hall. My heels clicked on the wood. They followed, huddling together like scared children. Is this your bedroom? Karen asked, trying to see into the darkness. No, I said. I stopped at the very last door. It was a heavy steel door. It looked like a vault. This is where I keep my secrets. The secrets you told me to hide. I put my hand on a small silver scanner next to the door. There was a beep. And then from inside the room we all heard it. A man's voice. Crying. It was Kevin. The sound of Kevin crying was thin and weak. Karen lunged for the door handle. Kevin. My baby. Let him out. She screamed, her voice cracking. Mark grabbed her arm. His face a mask of anger and confusion. What did you do to him, Sandra? He growled, taking a step towards me. I didn't move. I just looked at his fancy shoes. The same kind Kevin wore in court when he lied about me. I slowly lifted my eyes to meet his. I saved him, I said. Then I pushed the heavy steel door open. The room wasn't a prison. It was a beautiful modern office. But instead of paintings, the walls were covered in giant screens. And in the center of it all, sitting in a leather chair, was Kevin. He wasn't tied up. He wasn't hurt. He was just broken. He stared at a screen in front of him, tears streaming down his face. He didn't even look up when his parents rushed in. Kevin, baby, Karen cried, running to him. She tried to hug him, but he flinched away from her touch as if she were fire. On the screens around him were numbers. Bank accounts in faraway countries. Emails with secret codes. Videos of secret meetings. It was the Miller family's entire life of lies, playing on a loop. Every dirty deal. Every person they cheated. Every dollar they hid. I had found it all. And I had put it on display for their son to see. He's not crying because he's hurt, I said from the doorway. He's crying because he finally sees the truth. He finally sees you. I remember one night years ago, Kevin came home late. He had been drinking with his father. He was so proud. He opened a laptop, one I had never seen before. Look at this, Sandy, he slurred, his words thick with wine. My dad is a king. He moves money like a ghost. No one can ever catch him. He thought he was showing me how powerful his family was. He thought he was impressing the poor girl from the Bronx. What he was really doing was giving me a key to their secret world. Have you ever been underestimated? Have you ever had someone look at you and decide you were not smart enough, not strong enough, not good enough? They don't know the fire that's inside you, do they? They don't know that every time they push you down, you get a little bit stronger. Please tell me in the comments if you know this feeling. Your story gives me strength, and I pray that my story gives that same strength back to you and your loved ones. Mark stared at the screens, his face turning from red to a sick, pale gray. This is all lies, he stammered, but his eyes told a different story. You little thief. You were planning this from the day you met our son. Karen spun around, her face twisted with hate. We knew you were trash. We knew you were after our money. I almost laughed. Their money. They had no idea what real money was. They had no idea what real power was. This wasn't about their money. This was about my soul. You're wrong, Karen, I said, my voice quiet and calm. I wasn't after your money. I was after justice. I pointed to one of the screens. It showed a list of names. These are the employees whose pensions you stole, Mark. Hundreds of them. People who worked for your family for 30, 40 years. My father worked in a factory for 40 years. He came home every night with sore hands and a tired back, but he was so proud because he had earned his retirement. You stole that from people. People like my dad. They were silent. They just looked at the screens. At the proof of their greed. Finally, Mark took a deep breath. He tried to puff out his chest, to look like the powerful man he used to be. Fine, he said. You have us. What do you want, Sandra? Money. We can get you money. He pulled out his phone. Let me make a call. I just smiled a sad little smile. Who are you going to call, Mark? Your lawyers are a little busy right now. And your phone doesn't work up here. Nothing works unless I want it to. He looked at his phone. No signal. His face fell. The last bit of his power was gone. He looked around the room, trapped. Karen started to sob, a loud, ugly sound. Kevin just kept staring at the screens, whispering, all of it. It was all a lie. They were finally broken. The powerful Miller family, brought to their knees in my secret room in the sky. But I didn't bring them here just to show them their sins. I brought them here to make a deal. I walked over to the main screen and touched it. A new video appeared. It was old, from a security camera. The quality was bad, but you could clearly see a younger Mark Miller. He was in a dark parking garage, handing a briefcase to another man. The man looked scared. You remember Frank Peterson, don't you, Mark? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. The man whose company you stole. Your first big win. Mark's eyes were glued to the screen. The police said he took his own life. But this video, it tells a different story, doesn't it? Mark Miller's face went white as a sheet. He stumbled back, knocking into a chair. No, he whispered. That's not possible. That video is fake. Frank was my friend. Karen grabbed his arm, her eyes wide with fear. Mark, what is he talking about? Who is Frank Peterson? Kevin finally looked up. His eyes, which had been dead, were now filled with a new dark terror. He was looking at his father. Really looking at him for the first time. Dad, Kevin whispered. What did you do? Frank Peterson, I said, my voice filling the silent room, was your father's first partner. He was the real brains behind the Miller Company. But he was too trusting. I pointed to the screen. The video showed Mark handing a briefcase to a man in a dark coat. That man, I said, was paid to put drugs in Frank's car. He was paid to make false reports to the bank. Mark here ruined him. He took the company, he took his house, he took his life. And all he got in return was a little bottle of pills to plant at the scene. He made it look like Frank was a failure who couldn't handle the pressure. Karen let go of Mark's arm. She looked at her husband. Mark, is this true? She breathed. Mark was sweating now. He couldn't look at his wife. He couldn't look at his son. He just stared at the screen. It was business, he growled. It was a long time ago. You don't understand. I walked closer to him. But Frank had a family, Mark. He had a father. An old man who loved him. An old man who you also ruined. You took everything from him. You left him with nothing. Just like you left me with nothing. I remembered my first Christmas with the Millers. I was so excited. I spent 2 months' salary on a beautiful, delicate silver locket for Karen. I wanted her to like me so much. I gave it to her, my hands shaking. She opened the box. Oh, she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. How quaint. Thank you, Sandra. Later that night I was in the kitchen getting some water. I heard her laughing with her friends in the other room. She gave me this cheap little necklace, Karen said. I gave it to the maid. Maybe she can use it to polish the real silver. I ran to the bathroom and cried so hard I couldn't breathe. Have you ever given your whole heart to someone, only to have them throw it away like it was trash? It's a pain that cuts so deep, you feel like you'll never heal. If you know that pain, please share your story in the comments. We are a family here. And I promise you, a heart that has been broken can grow back stronger than you can ever imagine. We heal together. You always looked down on me, didn't you, Karen? I said, turning to her. Her face was pale. My quaint gifts. My tiny apartment. My cheap clothes. She shook her head. No, Indra. I didn't mean. You meant every word, I said. You wanted to make me feel small. 'Cause you are small. Your money and your big houses. It's all a show. Inside, you are empty. I looked back at Mark. You wanted to know how I did this. You think I did this? The poor girl from the Bronx. Mark was breathing hard. Who? He demanded. Who helped you? Who did this? I walked back to the main desk and touched the screen. The video of Frank Peterson disappeared. A new face appeared. It was an old man. He had kind eyes, but they were full of a deep, old sadness. You don't remember him, do you, Mark? Yes. Mark and Karen stared at the screen. I've never seen him, Karen whispered. Are you sure, Karen? Yes. Look closer. His name, I said, is Arthur Peterson. He is Frank Peterson's father. Mark's knees buckled. He grabbed the desk to hold himself up. Arthur, he's been dead for years, Mark stammered. Is that what you told everyone? Said. No, Mark. He's not dead. He's just been waiting. When you destroyed his son, you thought you took everything. But you missed something. You missed him. You left him alive. And just like me, he had nothing left to lose. So he spent his life building one thing. This. I waved my hand around the room. This isn't my apartment, Mark. This is Arthur's fortress. He built it right across from your penthouse, just so he could watch you. He spent 30 years gathering every dirty secret, every lie, every crime. He was the one who found me. After the divorce, I was working at a coffee shop. He came in every day for a week. He just sat and watched me. Then he left me a note. It said, I know what they did to you. I think we can help each other. The screen flickered. The picture of Arthur turned into a live video. The old man was sitting in a dark room. He looked right at Mark. Mark cried out a small, terrified sound. Hello, Mark. Arthur's voice came through the speakers. It was old and rough like gravel. It's been a long time. I've been watching you. I've been watching you enjoy the company my son built. The company you stole. Arthur leaned closer to the camera. And now, I believe you have something else that belongs to me. My son's good name. Mark Miller scrambled to his feet. His face was a mask of purple rage. This is insane, he screamed, his voice echoing in the giant's silent room. He wasn't talking to Arthur anymore. He was talking to me. You did this. You snake. You got this old man to lie for you. You faked that video. You faked all of it. He was trying to be the old Mark. The man who could scare anyone just by raising his voice. He thought if he yelled loud enough, the truth would run and hide. He forgot he wasn't in his boardroom. He was in mine. Arthur's face on the screen was calm. He was not afraid of Mark's yelling. You always were loud, Mark, the old man's voice crackled. You were loud at my son's funeral. Do you remember that day? You stood over his coffin. You put your hand on my shoulder, and you told me you were sorry. You said you would take care of everything. You were lying then and you are lying now. But you are right. A video is not enough. I need someone to tell us the truth. So I brought a guest. A guest, Karen whispered. Her eyes darted around the room, as if someone was hiding behind the white couch. What does he mean? Who is here? Mark looked at the steel door. Who else did you bring into this trap, Sandra? I just smiled and pointed at the screen. He doesn't mean a guest here, I said. The camera showing Arthur pulled back. Sitting next to him in another wheelchair was a tiny, frail old woman. She was wrapped in a blanket. Her eyes were closed. Mark, Arthur said. Do you remember your secretary, Brenda? Mark's entire body went stiff. He stared at the screen. Brenda, he whispered. Brenda. Brenda died. Years ago. In Spain. No, Mark, Arthur said. She just ran. She ran with the money you gave her to lose Frank's files. She was terrified you would find her. She lived in fear for 30 years. But I found her. She's very sick now. She wants to tell the truth before she goes. She wants to be free. As he spoke, the old woman's eyes opened. They were cloudy, but they looked right at Mark. He made me do it, she whispered. Her voice was like dry leaves. He said Frank was trouble. He lied. He lied about everything. That was it. That was the tiny stone that started the avalanche. Mark Miller, the king of New York, just broke. He didn't just fall. He collapsed. He fell onto my white glass floor and curled up into a ball. He was a big man, but he looked so small. He made a sound I will never forget. It was a deep, terrible wail. It was the sound of a man whose whole life had just been pulled out from under him. Karen stared at him. She didn't move to help. She just looked at this man on the floor. She was looking at a stranger. Kevin was the one who finally spoke. He was still in his chair, but he had turned to look at me. His face was pale. What happens now, Sandra? He asked. His voice was shaking. What does he want? All of us looked at the screen. Arthur Peterson was watching Mark cry on the floor. His face was sad. It's very simple, Mark, Arthur said. You have two choices. You have 1 hour to decide. He held up one finger. Choice 1. I give everything to the police. The videos. The secret bank accounts. Brenda's confession. Everything. You will spend the rest of your life in a cold prison cell. And you will die there. Mark looked up from the floor. His face was a mess of tears and sweat. Or what? He gasped. What's the other choice? Arthur leaned in, his face filling the screen. Choice 2, he said. You give it all back. Not just the money. You will sign a full confession. Not to the police. To the world. You will go on live television. You will tell everyone what you did to my son, Frank. You will clear his name. You will tell them he was not a failure. You will tell them you were the thief. You were the liar. Karen let out a small scream. Go on TV. He can't. It would ruin us. It would ruin the family name. Arthur's voice was like ice. You are already ruined, Karen. This is about his soul. But that's not all. He looked at Mark. You will sign over every last dollar, every hidden account to a new fund. A fund to pay back the families of the employees whose pensions you stole. He paused. And one more thing. You will sign this. A piece of paper slid out of a small slot in the wall. Picked it up. Mark stared at the paper in my hand. What is that? It's a power of attorney, I said, my voice soft. It gives someone else total control of what's left of the Miller Company. It gives them the power to sell it, to break it apart, to give its money to the victims. Karen stepped forward, her eyes wide. Who gets control? You. I shook my head. No, not me. Arthur's voice came one last time, cold and final. You have to choose, Mark. Prison. Or freedom. But if you choose freedom, the company, the money, the power, it all goes to your son. It all goes to Kevin. Karen's head snapped toward Arthur's face on the screen. Give it to him, she shrieked, her voice like a siren. You want to give everything to Kevin? Are you insane? She laughed, a high, crazy sound. He's weak. He's a fool. Mark, get up. Get up and stop this. She grabbed her husband's arm, but he was a dead weight. She turned her anger on Kevin. He can't run a company. He can't even pick out his own clothes. You do this, and he'll lose it all in a week. She was screaming, but her words were just empty noise in the huge glass room. Mark Miller was not a king. He was a bug. He slowly, painfully, crawled on his hands and knees. He crawled on the clean white glass floor until he was at his son's feet. "Kevin," he choked, his voice wet with tears. "Please. My son. Save me. Please." He grabbed the bottom of Kevin's expensive pants. I did it all for you. Don't you see? The money. The company. It was all for you. So you would be powerful. So you would be safe." He was lying even now. He was trying to wrap his son in his own dirty crimes. Kevin just stared down at the top of his father's head. His whole body was shaking. He gripped the arms of his chair so hard his knuckles were bone white. This man on the floor. This was his hero. This was the man he had tried to please his whole life. This was the man he had lied for. The man he had betrayed me for. And now that man was a crying, begging, broken thing. What do you do when the person you look up to falls so far? What do you do when your whole life was built on a lie? I remembered Kevin in college. We were sitting on a bench in the park. He had an old guitar. He was playing a song he wrote for me. His voice was soft, and his eyes were so bright. He told me he wanted to be a musician. That night, he played the same song for his father. Mark listened for 1 minute. Then he laughed. "A musician," he boomed. "Don't be a clown, son. Millers are kings. Not jesters." He didn't break Kevin's guitar. He broke Kevin. I watched the light in my boyfriend's eyes go out that night. And it never came back. Arthur's cold voice cut through the room. "The clock is ticking, Mark. You have 1 hour." Karen let out a small scream. "You can't do this. You can't make him decide. Kevin, tell them no." She grabbed her son's shoulder. "Tell them we will fight. Tell them who we are. Family sticks together, Kevin. Blood is thicker than water." She was desperate. She was trying to build her weak, obedient boy back up. She was trying to remind him that he was a Miller. And that Millers always protect their own. But Kevin didn't listen. He slowly, very slowly, turned his head. His eyes were red and empty. He didn't look at his mother, who was shaking him. He didn't look at his father, who was crying at his feet. He looked right at me. His ex-wife. The woman he had thrown away like trash. His voice was just a whisper. "Sandra," he said. My heart jumped. "Why?" he asked. "Why me? Why give me the choice?" He knew this wasn't about the company. You hate me. You should. I lied. I let them do that to you. Why are you doing this?" I looked at the broken man I had once loved so much. "You're right, Kevin," I said. "I did hate you. I hated you even more than I hated them." He flinched. "They were monsters. But you were just weak. And weakness, Kevin, is a choice. You chose to let them crush you. You chose to let them crush me." I stepped closer, holding the paper out to him. "This isn't a gift. This is a test. Arthur didn't choose you because you are strong. He chose you because you are the one they broke." Arthur's voice came back, harder this time. "Kevin," he said, "your mother is wrong. Your father is wrong. This is not about saving the family. This is about ending it." Mark and Karen looked up, confused. What does that mean?" Karen whispered. Arthur looked right at Kevin. "Your father has a choice, yes. Prison. Or freedom. If he chooses freedom, he signs the company to you. But that is only step 1. Then you have a choice." The room went cold. "I have another paper, Kevin," Arthur said. "A contract. The moment your father signs the company to you, you must sign it over to me. To the victims fund. It will sell every building. It will break apart every part of Miller Industries. It will erase the Miller name from the world." He paused. "Your father has to choose to give you the sword, Kevin. But you You have to be the one to swing it. Or, you can say no. You can keep the company. And watch your father go to prison forever. The choice is yours, son. The room was so quiet I could hear my own heart beating. It was the loudest sound. Mark was on the floor. Karen was frozen, her mouth open. And Kevin just stared at the 2 pieces of paper in my hand. He looked like a man who was already dead. The choice Arthur had given him was not a choice. It was a knife to cut his father loose. Or a knife to cut his own throat. He was trapped. This whole beautiful glass prison was built just for him. Karen was the first to move. Her head snapped up, and she looked at Arthur's face on the screen. "A trick!" she screamed, her voice breaking the silence. "This is a dirty, evil trick. Mark, don't listen to them. Don't you see? They want us to fight. They want to tear our family apart." She pointed a long, shaking finger at me. "And you venomous little snake. You were planning this all along. You wanted this. You wanted to see us ruined." She was right about one thing. I did want to see them ruined. I looked at Karen. Her expensive silk blouse was wrinkled. Her perfect hair was a mess. I remembered all her perfect garden parties. I remembered how she would walk around her giant lawn in the Hamptons, pointing at flowers, telling everyone how much work it was. One time she saw me standing alone by the food. She walked over. "You know, Sandra," she said, so quiet no one else could hear. "The trick to a good party is making sure everyone belongs. Try to look like you belong." Now she was the one who didn't belong. Mark slowly got to his feet. He was an old man now. The king was gone. He looked at Arthur on the screen. "Arthur, please," he begged. His voice was rough. "Don't do this. I'll pay you anything. Name a price. Just don't do this. Don't take my company. It's my life." He was bargaining. The great Mark Miller was begging a ghost on a screen. He still didn't get it. He still thought this was about money. "The price," Arthur's voice said, cold and hard, "was my son Frank. You already took him." The old man's eyes were like chips of ice. "You have 50 minutes left to decide, Mark. The clock is running. Confess to the world and save yourself. Or be silent and rot in a prison cell. And your son will be the one who decides." Mark and Karen both knew it was over. Arthur would not change his mind. So, like 2 hungry wolves, they both turned on the one person they could still control. They turned on Kevin. Voiceover. "What do you do when the people who are supposed to love you are the ones pushing you off a cliff? What do you do when family is just another word for pain? It is the loneliest feeling in the world." Karen fell to her knees in front of her son. She grabbed his hands. "Kevin, my baby, my sweet boy," she cried. Real tears were streaming down her face. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of fear. "Please, Kevin, don't let them do this. We are Millers. We are family. You can't destroy your own family. It's your name. Your father's name. You can't throw that away. Think of all the good we've done. The charities. The hospitals." She was choking on her own lies. Mark saw that begging wasn't working. Kevin's face was still empty. So Mark tried to be a father. He put his hand on Kevin's shoulder. "Son," he said, his voice trying to be strong. "Don't listen to them. Listen to me. This is a test. And you know what? We can pass it. Let them give you the company. It's yours. Your legacy. We can fight this. Together. We can start over. Father and son. We can build it all back, bigger than before." He was selling his son a dream just like he always did. Kevin said nothing. He just looked at the floor. His father was offering him a partnership in a lie. His mother was begging him to save a name that was covered in dirt. For a second I was scared. I was scared that the old weak Kevin was still in there. I was scared he would do what he always did. I was scared he would obey. He finally moved. He pulled his hands away from his mother. He shook his father's hand off his shoulder. He stood up. He walked right past them. He walked to me. He stopped, so close I could see the fear in his eyes. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the papers. "This stops it," he whispered. His voice was like a child's. It all just stops. The fighting. The lying. The noise. My heart broke for him. He wasn't thinking about the money. He wasn't thinking about the company. He just wanted it to be over. "Yes, Kevin," I said. "It all stops. You can be free." He closed his eyes. Then he turned to his parents. "Dad," he said, his voice cold. "Give me the pen." Karen let out a sound. A deep animal scream. "No. Kevin, wait. If you sign that. There's something you don't know. Secret. A secret about you. About where you really came from." Kevin froze. His hand was halfway to the pen. "What?" he whispered. The word was small, but it cut through the room like a shard of glass. He turned his head very slowly to look at his mother. "What did you say?" Mark Miller looked just as confused. He was on his feet now, his face red and blotchy from crying. "Karen, what are you doing?" he yelled. "This is not the time for your drama." Stop trying to confuse him. Kevin, sign the paper. "Give me the pen." He was trying to take charge again. He was trying to be the king. But Karen wasn't listening to him. She was looking at Kevin. Her eyes were wide with a terror I had never seen before. She was a cornered animal. She had just thrown her last, most dangerous weapon. I mean, she stammered. "I mean, he's still your father, Kevin. He raised you. That's what matters. Not blood." She was trying to put the bomb back in the box. But it was too late. The fuse was already lit. Mark stopped yelling. He looked at his wife. "Not blood. Karen, what are you talking about?" Kevin took one step toward his mother. He was not the weak boy anymore. He was a man with nothing left. "Tell me," he said. His voice was low and dangerous. "Tell me." "But now." Karen stumbled back, her hands up. "Kevin, baby, please. Let's just go. Let's leave this awful place. We can talk about it at home. We can be a family again." "Tell me," he roared. It was the first time I had ever heard him yell at his mother. The sound made her jump, and the truth finally spilled out. "He's not your father, Kevin," she screamed, her face ugly with tears. I lied to everyone." Mark Miller fell back against the wall. He didn't make a sound. He just slid down until he was sitting on the floor. His eyes were wide and blank. He looked at Karen. He looked at Kevin. He looked at his own hands. The Miller name. The legacy. His heir. All of it was a lie. He had been raising another man's son for over 30 years. Kevin did not cry. He did not yell. He just stood there. He looked at the man on the floor who was not his father. He looked at the woman who had lied to him every day of his life. I'm not a Miller," he whispered. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. He was finally understanding. All those years he felt like he didn't fit in. All those years he felt like he wasn't good enough, no matter how hard he tried. It was because he wasn't one of them. He never was. Mark looked up at Karen. His face a mask of pure hate. "Who?" he whispered. "All these years. Who, Karen?" Karen was sobbing now, hiding her face in her hands. "You were never home," she cried. "You were always working. You were always with other women. I was so lonely. I was just a girl. I didn't know what to do." She was trying to blame him. But it didn't matter. The secret was out. Mark grabbed her arm. "I don't care. Tell me his name." Arthur's face was still on the screen. He was watching. He was watching this family tear itself apart. He looked sad. I can't, Karen cried. He's dead. Kevin looked at her. His eyes were cold. Who, he asked again, is my real father? Karen's whole body was shaking. She couldn't look at Kevin. She couldn't look at Mark. She looked at the screen. She looked at Arthur Peterson. Arthur, she whispered, her voice almost gone. Arthur. I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. A new, terrible silence filled the room. Mark didn't understand. Kevin didn't understand. But Arthur's old, sad eyes slowly filled with a new light. A light of understanding. Of horror. No, Arthur breathed. Karen, no. It cannot be. Mark looked from Karen to the screen. What are you sorry for? And then he too understood. His eyes went wide. No, he screamed. Karen looked at Kevin. His name, she sobbed, was Frank. Frank Peterson. The man who Mark Miller had destroyed. The man whose company he had stolen. The man whose grave he had stood over. That man was Kevin's father. Mark hadn't just stolen Frank's company. He hadn't just stolen his life. He had stolen his son. He had raised his enemy's child as his own, and he never even knew it. Kevin just stood there, stuck between the man who had raised him and the man on the screen, the grandfather he had never met. And I was holding the papers that would decide all of their futures. Kevin looked at Arthur on the screen. He looked at the man he now knew was his grandfather. Then he looked down at Mark, the man who had stolen his real father's life. He looked at Karen, the woman who had built his whole life on a terrible secret. He was not a Miller. He was a Peterson. He was the son of the ghost. He was the ghost. His whole life, all 32 years of it, vanished in a second. He was a new person. He was born right there in that cold glass room, in a trap built by his own blood. Mark Miller was not just a broken man. He was a man who had been erased. He pointed a shaking finger at Karen. You. A choke. You let me hate him. You let me mock him. You told me he was weak. That he wasn't like me. You knew he was his son. You made me hate my own. He couldn't say it. He couldn't say he had raised his enemy's son. He just made a sound, a low, animal growl of pure black hate. He lunged at Karen. Before he could touch her, Kevin moved. He stepped between them. He didn't push Mark. He just stood there. Wall. He was taller than Mark. Stronger. Mark fell back, surprised by his son's new power. Don't touch her, Kevin said. His voice was not his. It was a new voice. It was cold and dead. Karen cowered behind him, sobbing. Kevin, my baby. I did it to protect you. He would have hurt you if he knew. He hated Frank so much. I was trying to keep you safe. Safe, Kevin said without turning around. You let me live a lie. You let me grow up worshipping the man who murdered my father. You call that safe? He was not yelling. He was just speaking the truth. And the truth was hitting Karen harder than Mark's fist ever could. She had no answer. She just cried. Kevin turned and faced the man who had raised him. Mark was on the floor, a pile of expensive clothes and broken dreams. He looked so small. He looked pathetic. Arthur's face was still on the screen. He was watching his grandson. His face was a mix of 1,000 emotions. Sadness, and pride. He had come here for revenge. He had come here to destroy the Miller name. And instead, he had found the last piece of his son, Frank. He had found a Peterson. Kevin. Arthur's voice was soft now. All the ice was gone. My boy. Grandson. I did not know. I swear to you. I never ever knew. Kevin looked at the screen. He looked at this old man who was his true family. What did you want? Kevin asked. You You built this place. You found all this dirt. You put us all in this room. What did you want? Did you want revenge? Did you want to see them suffer? Arthur was silent for a long time. Yes, he finally said. I wanted them to feel the pain that I felt every day for 30 years. I wanted them to lose everything, just like I did. He paused. But now I have found something. Mark Miller on the floor started to laugh. It was a crazy, high-pitched laugh. You found something, he cackled. You found him. And what is he? He's a Miller. I raised him. He's weak. He's soft. He's mine. He pointed at Kevin. He's not a Peterson. He's not you. He's me. Kevin looked down at Mark. He felt nothing. No anger. No sadness. Just pity. He turned away from Mark and walked back to me. He stood right in front of me and held out his hand. He was not asking. He was telling. I gave him the 2 papers. He looked at the first one. The one that Mark had to sign, giving Kevin the whole company. He walked over to Mark. Get up, he said. Mark just laughed. Get up, Kevin said again, his voice harder. He grabbed Mark by the front of his shirt and pulled him to his feet. He slammed the paper against the wall. Sign it. Mark's eyes were wide. He was afraid of his son. He fumbled for the pen in my hand. His hand was shaking so badly. He signed the paper. It was done. The Miller Company was his. Now he held the second paper. The one that gave everything to Arthur's fund. The one that would destroy the company. This was the real test. Would he destroy his father's company? He looked at Karen. He looked at Mark. He looked at me. And then he looked at the screen. He looked at his grandfather. This, he said, holding up the paper, is what you want. You want me to destroy my father's legacy. To give it all away. Arthur looked at his grandson. It is not a legacy, Kevin, he said. It is a grave. Kevin stared at the paper. He held the power to destroy the Millers. Or to become one of them. He could keep the money. He could be the king his father always wanted him to be. Or he could burn it all to the ground. He lifted the pen. Karen screamed. No. Mark just watched, his eyes dead. Kevin pressed the pen to the paper. And then Arthur's voice shouted. Wait. Don't sign it. There's one more thing. Better way. Sandra, he said, his voice urgent. Take them to the last room. Take them to Frank's room. We all just stared at the screen. Frank's room. I whispered. Mark and Karen were pale. They were afraid of what else this old man had hidden in the walls. Kevin. Arthur's voice was gentle now. My grandson. Before you make your choice. There is one more thing you must see. Sandra, please. I nodded, even though I was scared too. I had never been in this last room. Arthur had always told me it was private. I walked to the back of the giant glass penthouse, to a simple wooden door I had never noticed before. I put my hand on a small hidden scanner. The lock clicked open. Kevin followed me. He was in a daze, like he was walking in a dream. Mark and Karen stumbled behind him. They were terrified, but they were more terrified of being left alone. I pushed the door open. It wasn't a vault. It wasn't an office full of secrets. It was a workshop. The room was warm, filled with soft light. On one wall, there were 3 old, beautiful guitars hanging. On a workbench there were blueprints and plans, not for buildings but for toys. For small, clever machines. And on a desk, there were dozens of notebooks, filled with songs. Kevin stopped in the doorway. He didn't walk. He floated. He walked over to one of the guitars and, without thinking, his fingers found the strings. He played a soft, sad sound. This was my father's, he whispered. This is Frank's room. Arthur's voice came from a small speaker in the corner. Yes, Kevin. This is who your father really was. Mark Miller told the world he was a failed businessman. A man who couldn't handle the pressure. But he was not a king, Kevin. He was a dreamer. He was an inventor. He was a musician. Kevin looked at his hands. The hands that his father Mark had always told him were too soft. "You have his hands, Kevin," Arthur said, as if he was reading his mind. "I saw it. In the park. Years ago. Before I even knew who you were. I saw you playing your guitar. You looked just like him. Just like my Frank." Kevin closed his eyes. The tears finally came. Not tears of sadness. Not tears of anger. They were tears of relief. He was not a failed Miller. He was a perfect Peterson. Voiceover, this is the moment. The moment you find out who you really are. It's not about the name you are given. It's about the truth in your heart. Have you ever felt like you were wearing a mask your whole life? If our story has touched you, if it has made you feel seen, please, I am begging you with all my heart, like this video. Share it with just one person who needs to feel strong today. And please subscribe. This channel is not just mine. It is ours. It is our home. We need to build this family together. Kevin turned around. He looked at Mark and Karen. They were standing in the doorway, looking lost. This room. They did not understand it. There was no money here. There was no power. "What is this?" Karen whispered. "This is junk." Kevin looked at her. He felt nothing. No hate. Just pity. He walked back to me. He took the 2 papers. He looked at the second one. The one that would destroy the company. He looked at Arthur on the screen. "You want me to destroy his company?" Kevin asked. "No," Arthur said. "Mark stole that company. But the money was built on my son's ideas. It's his money. It's your money." Kevin understood. He tore the second paper in half. The paper to destroy the company. Karen let out a gasp of hope. "Kevin. Oh, my baby." He held up his hand. "Shut up," he said. And she did. He walked to Mark. "You will confess," Kevin said. "You will tell the world what you did to Frank Peterson. You will clear his name. And you will give every personal dollar you have. Your houses, your cars, your paintings. To the victims' fund. You will live on nothing." Mark opened his mouth to argue. "Or," Kevin said, "I will give the police the video of the parking garage. You will die in prison. Your choice." Mark just nodded, his body broken. Then Kevin looked at his mother. You will go with him. You will have each other. And your family name, that you loved so much. But you will never speak to me again. You will never see me again." He turned his back on them. "Sandra," he said. "Show them out." I did. I walked them back. Through the glass penthouse. Into the dark, mirrored elevator. Down to the tiny apartment. Open the front door. They looked old. Just 2 old, scared, poor people. They were in a prison. Prison without walls. They would just be forgotten. Closed the door on them. Forever. 1 year later, I am standing in a new building. It is not cold and glass. It is warm, made of brick and wood. It is filled with the sound of children. And music. The sign outside says, "The Peterson Center for Music and Invention." Kevin is there. He is not wearing a suit. He is wearing jeans and a t-shirt. He is showing a little girl how to play a chord on a guitar. He looks up at me and smiles. A real, true smile. He is using his father's money to build his real father's dream. He is finally truly free. And me. My name is Sandra Vasquez. I was the girl they laughed at. The girl with the tiny apartment. They thought I was the lobby. But I was the one with a key to the whole building. Got my justice. I saw them fall. Now, I am the one who runs the Peterson Center. Arthur is there too. He sits in his wheelchair and he just listens to the music. He is at peace. We are all at peace. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. You are not alone. Never ever forget that.